Welcome to the deep dive. Now, forget what you think you know about internet memes, just for a moment.
Yeah, put those cat pictures aside.
Right. Today we're diving into the original idea, memes as units of cultural information, things passed on by imitation, almost like cultural genes.
That's the one. Richard Dawkins proposed this way back in '76, and we're using Susan Blackmore's book, The Meme Machine, as our main guide today.
Exactly. We're going to explore this really fascinating concept, how these cultural bits might actually be shaping our thoughts, our behaviors, even maybe our brains.
And for you listening, think of this as a shortcut, kinda, to understanding a really powerful idea. We'll pull out the key stuff, show you how it connects to the real world, hopefully without, too much jargon. It's all based on the sources we looked at.
Okay, let's unpack this then. So when we say meme, we're definitely not just talking about like a funny picture online. What's the core definition we're using?
Right, precisely. Dawkins made this analogy. Genes carry biological info, yeah. Pass through DNA. Memes, he proposed, are the cultural equivalent. Units of information could be a word, an idea, a belief, a tune, a fashion, a skill, anything that gets copied from one person to another.
And imitation is the key mechanism there. How's that different from genes?
It's totally different. Genes, you inherit them biologically from your parents.
Okay.
Memes, though, they're transmitted culturally through learning, copying, imitation. Think about, I don't know, tying your shoelaces.
Yeah.
Probably watch someone imitated them. Or using a knife and fork a certain way. That's meme transmission. It's cultural inheritance, not genetic.
Can you give some more like everyday examples, things we might not even realize are memes?
Oh, absolutely.
Ah.
Driving on a specific side of the road, that's a huge one.
Right.
Saying, bless you, when someone sneezes. Shaking hands. Eating certain foods together, like turkey at Thanksgiving in the U.S. Popular songs, obviously. Even architectural styles. These are all patterns of behavior or ideas copied through imitation.
It feels a bit strange, though, thinking of these things as having like their own agenda.
Well, that's where it gets really interesting and kind of weird. Dawkins suggested taking the meme's eye view.
The meme's eye view.
Yeah. Think of the meme itself as a replicator, almost like a virus in some ways. Its main goal, metaphorically speaking, is just to get copied.
Okay.
It's not necessarily working for our benefit or our genes' benefit. It's selfish, just trying to propagate itself. And we, with our imitating grains, are the vehicles it uses, the hosts.
Wow, okay, so we're just meme machines, basically. Was this idea, like, instantly popular?
Huh, not exactly. It definitely caused a stir, and still does, to some extent. Some academics were and are pretty skeptical.
Why is that?
Well, the analogy to genes isn't perfect, for one, and measuring memes is tricky. But you see the term meme everywhere online now, right?
Yeah, totally.
Because internet memes demonstrate the core idea, rapid replication of cultural bits, so obviously.
Yeah.
But in some maybe more traditional academic fields, especially studying human evolution, it's, let's say, not universally accepted as the primary driver.
I think one criticism I've heard is about how accurately memes get copied. Genes are copied pretty faithfully, usually. But ideas, don't they change a lot? Like that game, Telephone, or Chinese Whispers.
That's a really important point. Fidelity. The telephone game is a perfect example of how information can get distorted.
Right.
But Blackmore tackles this head on. She makes a distinction between copying the product and copying the instructions.
Okay, what's the difference there?
Think about drawing. If I copy your drawing and someone copies mine, the errors accumulate, right? That's copying the product. Kind of like Lamarckian evolution, passing on acquired traits.
Right, the drawing gets worse and worse.
Yeah. But now think about origami. You don't copy the finished paper bird. You copy the instructions for folding it.
Ah, okay.
The instructions, the meme, can be copied much more accurately. The final bird might be a bit different each time, but the core instructions remain stable. Blackmore argues memes are more like those instructions for behavior.
That makes sense. The underlying how-to gets passed on. So if memes are these instructions, what makes humans so good at spreading them? Why us?
Well, the central argument in the meme machine is our unique, or at least highly developed, ability to imitate. True imitation.
True imitation.
Yeah. Even as infants, we automatically copy facial expressions, sounds, gestures, a baby smiling back, waving. That's imitation starting early. This ability to faithfully reproduce observed actions is arguably what sets us apart.
But hang on, don't other animals imitate too? My cat seems to learn things by watching.
That's usually what's called social learning.
Yeah.
Animals definitely learn from each other. Your cat might learn that meowing at the cupboard gets food, because it saw another cat do it and get rewarded. That's learning the result.
Okay.
But true imitation, copying the precise form of an action, especially a novel one, that seems much rarer. Apes are smart, but even they aren't great at copying complex novel actions step by step like a human child would.
So it's the how, not just the what.
Exactly. There are exceptions, of course. Birdsong is a big one.
Hmm.
Young birds meticulously copy the songs of adults. That looks a lot like memetic transmission. But generally, complex imitation is our superpower.
Okay, so we're the master imitators. Let's circle back to this selfish meme idea. How does that actually play out?
Right. So just like Dawkins talked about selfish genes, meaning genes act to ensure their own replication, not necessarily for the good of the organism.
Yeah, I remember that.
The same logic applies to memes. Their selfishness just means that the memes that happen to be good at getting themselves copied will spread. It doesn't matter if they're good for us, good for society, bad for society.
Mhm.
If they replicate well, they thrive.
So like an earworm, that catchy song that gets stuck in your head, it's not there because it's like musically profound or beneficial?
Exactly. It's there because it has characteristics that make it easily remembered and likely to be hummed or sung, which exposes it to new potential hosts. It's a successful replicator.
Yeah.
And it's useful here to distinguish the replicator, the meme itself, the information from its vehicle or interactor. That's us, our brains, our behaviors. We're the hardware and the transmission lines.
This sounds like it could be a bigger principle beyond just biology and culture.
You're spot on. It connects to this idea called universal Darwinism. The basic concept is that evolution by natural selection, variation, replication, selection, isn't just for biological life.
Okay.
It can apply to any system where you have entities that make copies of themselves, where those copies vary slightly, and where some copies survive and reproduce better than others.
So memes fit that bill.
Perfectly. They replicate through imitation, they mutate, errors in copying, deliberate changes, and they're selected. Some ideas catch on, others die out.
Mm-hmm.
So memetic suggests there's a second evolutionary process happening on Earth, running parallel to genetics, driven by this cultural replicator.
Wow, a second replicator?
Yeah. And crucially, once our brains got good enough at imitation, which was likely a genetic change, this memetic evolution kind of took on a life of its own. It's not necessarily always serving the interests of our genes anymore.
So our genes kind of unleashed this thing, and now it has its own evolutionary path. That sounds like there could be conflict.
Absolutely. There's this idea of gene-meme coevolution. Initially, yeah, genes had to build brains capable of imitation. That was the prerequisite.
Right.
But once memes were out there, spreading and competing, they started changing the environment. And that put selective pressure back on our genes.
How so?
Well, imagine early humans. If having certain memes like better tool-making techniques or social cooperation strategies gave you an advantage, then genes that made you better at acquiring and using those memes would be favored. Brains better at imitation, memory, communication.
Ah, so memes drove genetic selection for better meme-handling brains.
Exactly. It's a feedback loop. Genes enabled memes, and then successful memes drove selection for genes that were better hosts for memes. They co-evolved.
Okay, that's a fascinating dynamic. How does something like language fit into this picture? That seems uniquely human, too.
Language is a prime candidate for this coevolutionary process. From a memetic viewpoint, the big advantage of language wasn't just for the individual speaker, but maybe even more so for the memes themselves.
Really?
How?
Really?
Think about it. Language allows for much higher fidelity and complexity in transmitting ideas compared to just imitating actions.
Yeah.
You can explain abstract concepts, tell stories, give detailed instructions.
Right. Much more efficient than just monkey see, monkey do for complex stuff.
Way more efficient. So memes that could be encoded in language could spread faster, further, and more accurately. This created an environment where language-based memes thrived.
And that, in turn, favored individuals with better language skills.
Precisely. It puts pressure back on the genes to evolve the biological machinery for complex language. The vocal tract, the brain structures, the meme-spreading apparatus, as Blackmore puts it.
So why do we talk so much? Is that just memetic pressure?
That's part of the argument. There's a constant pressure from, say, memes. Think about gossip, news, useful tips, warnings. These kinds of information are inherently designed to be passed on.
Uh-huh. Yeah, gossip definitely spreads.
Right. And the very act of talking itself could be seen as a super successful meme. A talk lots meme complex easily outcompetes a keep silent meme complex, just by its very nature. Communication spreads communication.
Okay, this connects to another puzzle. are massive brains. They're really energy hungry. Why did they get so big so fast, evolutionarily speaking?
That's the million-dollar question in paleoanthropology, isn't it?
Yeah.
The rapid tripling of hominid brain size. Traditional answers focus on tool use, social strategy, hunting.
Yeah.
The memetic explanation offers a different angle. The primary driver was selection for brains that were better at copying memes. As memes got more complex and useful fire-making, tool traditions, social rules, individuals who could imitate, learn, and transmit these memes more effectively had a huge advantage.
So the memes themselves drove the need for bigger, better hardware to run them on.
That's the core idea. It predicts a brain specifically optimized for high-fidelity imitation and cultural learning.
Mhm.
Our big brains aren't just for thinking abstract thoughts. They're potentially a consequence of becoming excellent meme machines.
Wow. Okay, shifting gears a bit. Let's look at modern life. You see behaviors that seem, well, kind of counterproductive from a gene's point of view, like people choosing not to have kids. How does memetics explain that?
That's where you really see the potential conflict between the two replicators,
Mm-hmm.
genes and memes.
The battle.
Sort of a battle, yeah. Genes want us to reproduce, to pass them on.
Hmm.
But think about memes related to, say, career success,
Sure.
or personal fulfillment through travel, or environmentalism warning against overpopulation, or religious celibacy.
Right.
These are powerful meme complexes. In our modern world, we are absolutely swimming in memes. Media, education, the internet, it's a constant flood.
Yeah, information overload.
Exactly. And in this environment, memes that encourage prioritizing things other than having children can become very successful and influential. People might invest their time and energy into propagating their ideas, their work, their legacy, propagating memes instead of propagating genes.
So memes can actually win out over the basic genetic drive sometimes.
It certainly looks that way in many cases. Adoption is another interesting one, investing resources in children who don't carry your genes. Genetically costly, but memetically, it can make sense if the caring for children meme is strong.
Okay. What about altruism? Helping others, especially non-relatives. Biology has explanations like kin selection or reciprocal altruism. Where do memes fit in?
Memetics offers another layer. Altruism itself can be a successful meme.
How so?
Well, firstly, it's imitable. You see someone act generously, you might be more likely to copy that behavior.
Okay, makes sense.
Secondly, being known as an altruistic person might make you more socially influential. People might like you more, trust you more.
And be more likely to listen to you and copy your other ideas.
Exactly. You become a sort of meme fountain. Your memes, including ones completely unrelated to altruism, might get a boost just because you are perceived positively.
Huh, that's clever.
And even just the appearance of altruism, things like politeness, saying please and thank you, basic social graces, these are highly successful memes. They grease the wheels of social interaction and make the person carrying them more agreeable, which helps their memes spread.
So being nice helps your ideas get copied.
It can, yeah.
Yeah.
And think about religions. They are often massive complexes of co-adapted memes. And many strongly promote altruism, at least towards others within the group,
Right, charity, helping fellow believers.
which strengthens group cohesion, makes the religion more attractive, and ultimately helps the entire religious memeplex replicate more effectively. Be good to people who share our beliefs is a powerful survival strategy for the belief system itself.
That's a really different way of looking at why those norms exist.
Right.
What about some of the, well, more unusual belief systems, like alien abduction stories or near-death experiences? Why do those catch on?
Yeah, Blackmore dives into those. They're great examples of memeplexes that tap into specific psychological needs or exploit cognitive biases.
Okay, like alien abduction.
Well, think about it. It offers an explanation for maybe disturbing or unusual experiences. People might have sleep paralysis, perhaps, or just vivid dreams. It plugs into existing cultural narratives about UFOs and aliens, which are already out there.
Fueled by sci-fi and media.
Right. And the stories often get amplified by media coverage. Plus, they're incredibly hard to disprove. How do you prove someone wasn't abducted? That untestability helps the meme survive.
And near-death experiences, or NDEs?
Similar factors. They touch on profound, often deeply emotional human experiences related to death and consciousness. They often conform to existing cultural or religious frameworks. People might see tunnels of light, deceased relatives, figures like Jesus, depending on their background.
So they fit expectations.
They can, yes. And they offer immense comfort and meaning to people facing mortality or those who've had such an experience. That gives the meme strong emotional pull.
What about things like psychics or tarot cards? They seem to persist despite, lack of evidence.
Memetics would point to things like the Barnum effect. That's where you use very general statements that sound specific but could apply to almost anyone.
You sometimes worry about money.
Yeah, exactly. You have a desire to be liked. People latch onto the bits that fit and ignore the misses. There's also confirmation bias and feedback loops. The psychic tells you something vague. You interpret it to fit your life. You give positive feedback. The psychic feels validated. The meme strengthens.
It feeds itself.
It does. And you see similar mechanisms in some alternative medicine, tapping into fear of illness, hope for a cure, leveraging the very real placebo effect, often using explanations that are hard to test scientifically, and sometimes genuinely benefiting from the altruistic intentions of the practitioners, which makes the whole package seem more trustworthy.
It sounds like successful memes are really good at exploiting our psychology.
They absolutely are. Or rather, the ones that happen to exploit our psychology well are the ones that survive and spread. It's evolutionary pressure.
So where does religion fit into this on a grander scale? You mentioned memeplexes.
Religions are perhaps the most successful, complex, and long-lasting memeplexes in human history. Think about all the interconnected memes. Belief in a specific god or gods, rituals, sacred texts, moral codes, afterlife narratives, dietary laws, holidays.
It's a whole package deal.
Exactly, a suite of co-adapted memes that reinforce each other. We talked about the beneficent norms, like in-group altruism that helps the group stick together and propagate the whole memeplex.
And things like faith.
Faith believing without evidence, or even despite contrary evidence, is a brilliant memetic trick. It essentially shields the core memes from critical evaluation or disproof. If questioning is discouraged, the memes are safer.
Protects the code.
Kinda, yeah. And religions often employ powerful emotional hooks, fear of damnation, hope of salvation, awe inspired by ceremonies or buildings, the comfort of community, the appeal of beauty in art and music. These are all effective meme-spreading tactics honed over centuries.
It's almost like they've evolved these strategies.
From a memetic perspective, that's exactly what's happened. Memes compete, and the ones with the best survival tricks win out. There's even a possibility of memetic group selection here.
Group selection? I thought that was controversial in biology.
It is for genes. But it might work differently for memes. If a religion, for example, makes its group highly cohesive, cooperative internally, and distinct from other groups, that group might outcompete other groups, spreading its memes and potentially its genes, if the groups remain distinct, more effectively. It's a theoretical possibility.
Wow. Okay, so memes spread person to person, but obviously technology plays a huge role now. How has that changed the game?
Oh, massively. It's like comparing the early evolution of life, maybe single-celled organisms bumping into each other with the Cambrian explosion. Technology has turbocharged meme replication.
How so? What were the big steps?
Well, spoken language was the first big leap. Then writing huge increase in fidelity, accuracy, and longevity. Memes could survive the death of the person.
Right, you can read Plato today.
Exactly. Then the printing press, massive increase in fecundity, number of copies made. Suddenly, memes could spread far and wide, relatively cheaply.
Okay.
Then telegraph, telephone, radio, TV. Each step increased the speed and reach of meme transmission. Fewer gatekeepers, faster spread.
And then the internet.
The internet, and specifically the World Wide Web, is a quantum leap. It offers incredible fidelity. Digital copies are perfect. Near infinite fecundity, copies are virtually free and limitless, and unprecedented reach and speed.
It's like the ultimate meme machine.
It really is. Memes can now replicate globally in minutes, largely bypassing traditional filters. And looking ahead, AI robots. We might be seeing the very early stages of new kinds of meme vehicles, non-biological ones, that could replicate memes entirely outside of human minds.
Whoa, that's a bit unnerving, AI evolving memes on its own.
It's a possibility down the line. Memes just need replication, variation, and selection. Silicon might provide a new substrate for that.
Okay, this leads to maybe the deepest, most mind-bending part of this whole idea. If we're just these vehicles for memes, these imitating machines, what does that mean for our sense of self, the me inside?
Yeah, this is where memetics gets really radical and challenges our deepest intuitions. We all feel like there's a central I in charge, right? A pilot in the cockpit.
Sure, feels that way.
Philosopher Daniel Dennett calls this the Cartesian theater. This idea of a single place in the brain where consciousness happens, where I watch the show. But neuroscience doesn't really find such a place.
No central command.
Doesn't seem like it. Dennett suggests our sense of self is more like a benign user illusion. A useful story the brain tells itself to make sense of its own complex processes. A narrative center of gravity, maybe?
An illusion. Wow.
It ties in surprisingly well with some ancient ideas like the Buddhist concept of anatta, or no self. The idea that the self isn't a fixed, enduring thing, but a constantly changing collection of thoughts, feelings, experiences. Memes, essentially.
So the self is just another meme, or a collection of them.
That's the idea of the selfplex. A really powerful, complex, and persistent memeplex that's built up over our lifetime, centered around the idea of being a continuous inner I. It includes our name, our history, our beliefs about ourselves, all memes we've acquired.
But what about free will? It feels like I make choices.
That feeling is real, definitely. But from this perspective, the feeling of making a free choice might itself be a product of our incredibly complex genetic and memetic programming. It's the system evaluating options based on stored memes and genetic predispositions, not necessarily a separate self stepping in to override everything.
So my choices are just the outcome of genes and memes interacting.
It's a challenging thought, isn't it? It suggests that the I isn't the originator of thoughts and actions as much as it is the narrative constructed around them.
Okay. If the self is an illusion or a meme construct, can we, live without it? What would that even mean?
Well, maybe not live without it entirely, but perhaps see through the illusion to some extent. Practices like mindfulness meditation are partly about this observing thoughts and feelings as they arise without automatically identifying with them as mine or me.
Detaching a bit.
Yeah, creating some space. Recognizing the selfplex as a construct, not a solid entity. Some argue this can actually lead to greater well-being, less suffering, because you're less attached to this fixed idea of me and its desires and fears.
But wouldn't that lead to, chaos? If there's no responsible self, why be good?
That's a common fear, but the argument flips it. Maybe less attachment to the ego, to the selfplex, could lead to less self-centered, harmful behavior and more actions based on compassion or reason, which are also memes we can cultivate. It doesn't mean abandoning responsibility, but perhaps understanding its roots differently.
This is definitely a lot to chew on. Okay, as we wrap up, what's the big takeaway here for someone listening, for the learner?
I think the main thing is recognizing memes in this original Dawkins-Blackmore sense as a real powerful force shaping our world. It's not just a quirky academic idea, it offers a different lens to view almost everything about human culture and behavior.
From language to religion to ourselves.
Exactly. It can provide those aha moments, helping you understand why certain ideas spread, why we behave in ways that sometimes seem illogical, why cultures develop the way they do. It's a fundamental process happening all around us and inside us.
Okay, so here's a final thought for you, the listener, to take away. Now that you're armed with this idea of memes as cultural replicators, maybe even selfish ones, how does that change how you look at the information you consume? The news, social media, the ideas your friends share.
Yeah, what memes are you encountering? Which ones are you choosing to pass on to replicate? And maybe even what selfish memes might be pulling your strings, influencing your thoughts and actions without you even realizing it.
It's definitely a landscape worth navigating with, perhaps a bit more awareness. Thanks for taking the deep dive with us today.